And ladies and gentlemen, it's time to step into our next session, taking you through UPI at the last mile, who will power the next 300 million users. Welcome all our speakers and panelists with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Sarika Agarwal joining us on stage, and our speakers and panelists, Mr. Debiprasad Sarangi, Mr. Sujeet Tyagi, Mr. Venugopal Choudhary, and Mr. Vivek Patel. I'd request Ms. Sarika to proceed the conversation. Thank you.
All, and a very warm welcome to you all, and thank you for joining in for today's panel discussion, which is UPI at the last mile, who will power the next 300 million users. This topic is really important and relevant today, not only for financial inclusion, but also from India's economic growth and for making India truly digital. I'm Sarika Agarwal, Chief Business Officer at FINDI, and I'm really excited to moderate this panel because at FINDI we are seeing every day how digital payments are transforming lives at last mile. I am also joined with a rich and diverse experienced panelist who have good experience in digital payments at the last mile. So at FINDI, we truly believe that the real progress of India will come from this set of customers. And as we work closely with merchants and local communities, we understand that enabling these users is not only about technology. While the key is that we develop innovative products, but it is also about building trust, awareness, and strong local networks. So while I'll join and how we will hear from our panelists how we can play a role in enabling these users. So we have Mr. Vivek Patel from Go Payments, Mr. Venugopal from Credit Plus at Pine Labs, Mr. Sujeet Tyagi from Montran Corporation, and Mr. Debiprasad, CEO, iServeU Technology. I welcome you all, and we'll start our panel now. So first, the big question, UPI has, of course, shown a remarkable progress and growth. But from your perspective, what is last mile exactly mean to you? And where do you see the exact opportunity which lies at the last mile? So maybe we can start with Vivek.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Nice to see a full room. So as Sarika correctly said, right, I mean, if you have to reach the next 300 million users for UPI, it is going to have to come from the last mile because the first 400 million have already been onboarded and acquired, and most of them belong to the metros, tier 1, tier 2 cities. So if you have to get the next 300 million, it is going to have to come from the rural and the semi-urban areas. And they are going to come via, I feel, business correspondents. They're going to have a huge role to play in this because the business correspondents are the one who have the trust. They are already there serving their local communities, and they will be the ones who will be onboarding the next 300 million users that are there for UPI. So I'm very confident and bullish on the business correspondent model for this.
Yeah, sure, because of course the trust comes from somebody who can assist them, somebody they can go to if there is a problem in their transaction. And let's hear from Mr. Venugopal. What is your take on the big opportunity when you talk about enabling these 300 million users?
Hi everyone, I am Venugopal Choudhary. I head processing business at Pine Labs. We call it Credit Plus. Good morning to all of you. Very interesting. We were having these conversations in morning over a coffee as well among the panelists. I think there are two factors that play alongside each other. One, of course, is how you reach out to these next 300 million customers, like you said. And Vivek said that, okay, it's business correspondents or assisted banking is one way to do it. So one thing is about reaching to them. The other thing is what you do with those customers. I think at the same time, we will have to enrich the banking products, enrich the financial products that we then take to these customers. Yesterday, some of us saw that, we have now rolled out UPI on ATM. So, you could actually start to withdraw cash on ATM or cash points using UPI. We had few other, recent developments on policy side, like, RBI announced that, UPI needs to be extended even to the basic savings accounts as well, right? The accounts that were opened in Janadan. So it's very important to also enrich what all is offered so that it becomes a sustainable and a growing phenomena, right? So I think that's what I think my view is on that.
Yeah, I think, and during the course of panel, we'll also hear about you, the innovative product, maybe a credit on UPI.
Sure.
So, Mr. Sujeet, while you, I think you work with a lot of institutions like RBI and all. So what is your say, what is your insight when we talk about enabling UPI for next wave?
Hello, good morning everyone. I would say that we as a country, we have already captured somewhere around 400, 500 million users on UPI. Now, as we are targeting about next 300 million users, I would say that those would come from a semi-urban or rural areas predominantly. And when we talk about rural areas or semi-urban areas, they are a very close community. And the word of mouth travels very fast. And I think UPI is one of the use case where everyone knows about it. We as a community we need to work on two aspects, I would say. One is building more and more trust, right? That if the trust factor is high, the acceptability and adaptability would be much higher. And the next one is awareness. All of us know about what is UPI, right? How it works. But when we go deep into rural areas, I think we need to work more on the financial literacy part. They know what is UPI, how to use it. But we need to tell them that if there is some issue, how you need to resolve it, how you need to approach someone, what is OTP meant for, what is PIN meant for. So if they are very well aware of the know-hows of UPI, I think the adaptability would be easy and we would see a lot of surge in UPI volumes.
Yeah, I think this next 300 million users, they really want somebody to handhold them. Somebody who can bring in that trust that something goes wrong, I am there maybe for you to resolve it or help you resolve it. So, Debiprasad, what is your take on enabling them?
Hi. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to introduce iServeU. iServeU is a payment infrastructure provider. We empower banks to launch products ranging from issuance to acquiring. So what I would like to talk about is that I think Vivek has already spoken about how these customers can be onboarded in UPI infrastructure. So what also I would like to enlighten here is that also we need to build the acceptance infrastructure on rural area. Today you can see that I think players like PineLab or Paytm have done tremendous work by creating that acceptance infrastructure in urban areas, right? But I think also we need to create that infrastructure in rural areas as well. And NPCI has already played a key role by allowing cooperative banks to act like acquiring bank, where cooperative banks can also onboard merchants directly into their ecosystem. So, and also what we have seen that a lot of PSU banks have also started recently investing heavily into sound boxes, UPI-led sound boxes. At ISU, we have also helped many PSU banks to launch QR-based programs throughout the country in rural hinterlands. So I believe this will be a game changer if we'll be able to create that acceptance infrastructure in rural and deep tier locations.
So we understand the opportunity is huge, but still the adoption at last mile faces some hurdles. So Debiprasad, we talk about Soundbox, UPI-enabled Soundbox that is enabling merchants, which will again drive adoption. So where maybe the merchant network is low, what is your solution which we can provide maybe at ATMs using UPI for cash withdrawal and how it can drive adoption?
I think already you have spoken about the recent regulation which came just yesterday. At BC locations, basically, you will be able to withdraw cash. That is, apart from that also, I think in your white label ATM or ATM networks, also it is allowed. But I think recently what I would say is that like players like FINDI and India One gonna launch ICICW transaction facility on their ATM network at scale. I believe that will be a game changer. If let's say if there is no acceptance infrastructure, then probably you can walk into a nearest ATM or a white label ATM, or probably you can walk into a BC store, BC outlet, and you can withdraw cash. So cash to digital or cash to UPI will probably help in the adoption at rural, right?
So like while we were discussing, we were also talking about the costs associated with debit cards, the infrastructure. So maybe you can also, the panelists can also throw some light how this UPI cash withdrawal can also play an important role in driving digital payments. Yeah.
Yeah, so as you see, right, today most of the cash withdrawal in rural India, it happens through Aadhaar-enabled payments. And unfortunately, Aadhaar-enabled payments, while it is doing a huge amount of like business, about 25-30,000 crores a month as per NPCI, but I think it can be much more improved, especially when it comes to things like failure rates, when it comes to things like fraud, chargeback, and all those issues that we are facing. And that is where I feel UPI, doing cash withdrawal through UPI will be a game changer for that. Because now you're not dependent on a biometric, or you're not dependent on a single point of failure. So that's where I feel that UPI will come in. However, at the same time, also if we want this to take off at scale, we will need to come up with some kind of an incentive structure for the business correspondents that are there, and make it lucrative. Because even in AEPS today, you have an interchange, you have something where the BC is able to earn something out of it. So if you want this to take off at scale, we have to figure out some way, somehow, like how we can come up with some kind of incentive structure to make sure that the next 300 million users are not only onboarded, but they're able to use it and use it regularly as the first point of payment rather than as a last resort.
Can I add?
Yes, please.
Look, I think there are 3 or 4 aspects which are playing together, right? One thing that UPI has done very well is simplified the experience for consumer. And that plays irrespective of form factor, irrespective of the type of transaction you use it on. I'm sure that's going to play out in ATM withdrawals as well. The other factor I think Sujeet talked about was trust. Look, with the consumers inherently have better trust on banks. You see across the ecosystem, you have multiple players coming in. You have BNPL players, you have many other lending players, NBFCs. But if you go especially to the semi-urban rural customers, they already have relationship and trust with banking. UPI, what it is doing is either through assisted or direct, it's taking the last mile services of banks to the consumers. So trust is inherently there. Better experience, higher trust. We also saw that merchant transaction P2M have really now taken over P2P now in UPI world. I believe the same phenomena will happen. In fact, we are investing very heavily in both enabling merchant network at semi-urban and rural areas, also enabling innovative products like credit line on UPI, basically because of these factors. I think if you put all of them together, and if we do this well, of course, the serviceability, the infrastructure, resiliency plays a big role. If you do all of this well, I believe that it can change the way banking is consumed in semi-urban and rural areas. So definitely a large roadmap ahead of us.
I think I would like to add one pointer here. Like you alluded to, debit card inherently is an expensive proposition, right? Whenever you are issuing a debit card, there is a cost, there is a maintenance fee. So I believe that this is the alternate to debit card withdrawal. Using withdrawal using UPI, whether it is at a BC location or a ATM, it's alternative to debit card withdrawal. I think that is also will play a key role in driving scale for this kind of transaction.
Yeah, debit card, I think primary use is now on ATMs, especially on these areas. Yeah, but I believe P2M transactions will also take off, and I'm actually banking. I think all of us are banking that they overtake the ATM withdrawals and cash transactions, even at these locations. I think that's going to happen.
When we talk about this creditworthiness, this credit line on UPI, maybe you can throw some light on it, how it will enable, how you see it taking it over.
there are 3-4 aspects that come in play when somebody goes for a credit. One, the purpose. We recently did some use case study. One very good use case came out when somebody is at a hospital taking treatment. Suddenly, you need to pay a large amount of bill which you didn't plan for. What are the options today if you are not holding a credit card? The option is you go out, take personal loans, which are super expensive. And if we talk about these set of users, there are hardly any overlap with credit card holders there. Now, with UPI, a bank can extend a loan at much cheaper operating cost, right? There is trust. There is more, reliability on how the payment will come back. Banks are also sure that if you are extending a loan, it's being used for a specific purpose itself. You are paying at a hospital. You are paying at a clinic, right? Therefore, the underwriting risk, the fraud risk is also lower. If you put all of this together, this is just one use case, but there are so many use cases. You go for education payments. You go for medical bills, the large one-time payments, which often comes unplanned. I think that's a very big use case. When you get the ecosystem to grow, we'll see a lot more such use cases. And I believe, a lot of us, and in fact, Pine Labs, we are investing heavily on working on these use cases. So I believe if we as an industry do well in, simplifying these use cases, innovating around them, we will only catalyze this growth and this adoption.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, Mr. Sujeet.
Yeah, I would just like to add that UPI data is already very rich, right? And somehow if we can just harness the power of data, we all can come up with a lot of use cases which will, I would say, increase the growth of transactions to the nth level.
So I was coming to Sujeet that while we talk about all the opportunities, we know with opportunity comes the challenges, and of course with volume will come the stress on the system. So how should financial institutions, payment system operators prepare themselves once we enable all these 300 million users? Because when we talk about trust, getting the system uptime is also, I think, a crucial key factor here.
Absolutely. And I would just like to start with an example. So for example, you are at a counter having tea and you are paying through UPI. And if unfortunately at that point of time UPI doesn't work, you are not happy and you would think that, oh man, cash is much better because I should not have retried, or it would happen so quickly, right? So now as we are currently doing somewhere around 20 billion transactions a month on UPI, and we are looking at adding 300 more million users, right? The financial institution needs to be absolutely ready for the kind of volume growth, right? And I would like to categorize this into 3 different parts. The first is scalability, right? We are a very festive nation, right? Event-driven nation, right? So there would be ups and lows in transaction volume. So the financial institution should be ready to handle those kinds of load. The solution should be deployed with a greater amount of scalability, so they can scale vertically, they can scale horizontally as and when the requirement is there. And then when the volume is not so high, they can come back to the original configuration just to optimize the cost. So that is one aspect. The second aspect I would like to mention is availability, right? So the financial institution needs to ensure that these payment systems are always available. As I quoted one example, right? So the user wants that the transaction should go at any cost. So the onus is on financial institution to ensure that their system is ready and it can handle any kind of situation where if there is some issue, some bottleneck, it should have been avoided. So, and the third one I would say is speed. As we are adding more and more stress, or let's say more and more transactions, we need to ensure that we increase the response time, the user experience, because everything relates to a user experience, right? If you are at a McDonald's queue and your UPI is taking time, so neither the merchant would be happy nor the customer would be happy. So these are the three aspects, I would say: scalability, resilience, and speed. If the financial institutions can work on it, UPI will go to the next heights.
Right. Yeah.
Sarika, I would
Yeah.
like to add one point here. If you'll see, UPI kind of product is not designed to be hosted in a physical sort of data center. And like he was alluding to, because the load on UPI system is not flat all across the day. It is sort of cyclical in nature. Sometimes it might go up, it might also go down. So that is why if you are hosting UPI in a physical data center, then you have to procure all your hardwares or you have to provision your hardwares for the peak. Whereas you are not utilizing those hardwares throughout the day, right? So that is why I think, so at ISU we've been heavily investing into, so all our switches are sort of hosted in cloud. We very closely work with cloud providers like GCP, Google Cloud, and we have designed all our switches to be hosted in Google Cloud, and it can auto scale and down using Kubernetes technology, and it can help banks to save costs.
Yeah, so I think as performance as well as cost can be optimized while using the cloud on that. Yeah. So while we talk about scalable resilience and everything, I think there is something which is not a very pleasant word to hear, and talk about frauds. So while we who are maybe a part of financial ecosystem, we are still so much skeptical about all these frauds which are happening day in, day out. Just talk about these 300 million users who are not maybe that much financially literate. So what is our role in combating that fraud, and how we can bring in that comfort in their mind that when they are using digital payments, they are safe and secure? So maybe, yeah.
Well, very interesting question. So when you have to tackle something like fraud, if you talk about technology and innovation on tackling fraud better, I think we have that in place. Solutions are there. But those solutions also need to have two more things. One, how data rich as a country we have become. I think Sujeet talked about that. And you see there is a increasingly data richness that's coming in. Recently, ULI interface is a perfect example of how we are making a data-rich ecosystem for all the consumers. Unified lending interface. That's one example. The third aspect, so technology, data, and the third aspect is policy. You see, I was actually, first few years, I was actually outside India. I moved back in 2012, and I remember one phenomenon that happened then. Overnight, all our transactions from a signature based literally became chip and pin or max stripe and pin based transactions, right? And that was a very, very bold, disruptive policy decision that came in. I think there are steps being taken. Something like that will have to happen. That will bring a lot more trust in the consumers. Some of those policy steps with the technology as well as application of right data models, I think that's the one that is going to increasingly improve our fraud performance as a country. But look, it's not going to go away, and this is going to be a challenge when you reach out to semi-urban and rural landscape. One fraud transaction can take the consumer away from it for months.
Absolutely. Yes. So I am coming. I think one more important factor is also about the compliance angle or the stringent policy when we are onboarding these merchants. Because one merchant who has done maybe a fraud to the customer will be really detrimental to the progress and adoption of digital payments. So Mr. Debiprasad, maybe if you can throw some light on that how do we ensure maybe the fintech companies that when they are onboarding the merchants, how do they ensure that they are not maybe onboarding somebody who will be duping the customers at the last mile?
So I think today if you'll see there is in UPI, the main authentication factor is your PIN. I think already there are multiple authentication factors are already available in India, like your DigiLocker, FaceAuth, then geotagging the merchant. So probably these are some of the mechanisms which can be implemented here as well during the merchant onboarding, during the UPI transaction. Plus, I think in card payments there is a EMB standard, right? Which today I think RuPay is already migrating to EMB standard. Probably at some point of time NPCI also must be thinking to migrate this UPI security or UPI authentication to EMPCO standard, so that because since it is a global standard, a lot of histories are already there, so probably it will help to reduce frauds in this space.
Yeah, I think so. One more thing to add here is, look, there is a lot of innovation that has already happened on how disputes are being managed. Look, you could prevent, but what's important is how fast you react. I don't know how many of us have seen when we have to reach out to a bank on call, we end up waiting for hours and hours before somebody finally answers, and that is going down. So with the advent of AI, maybe a right policy push, and some steps have already been taken. Like if you're a card user and you report a dispute, the amount is within a specific time period, the amount is immediately blocked and returned to you, so the consumer is not hurt. So combination of that, banks adopting to latest AI technology so that customers can reach out to them immediately, can block a transaction immediately, report a transaction immediately, and a policy that protects the consumer. Whenever they are legitimate, they are right. I think a combination of this will go a long way. Even after a fraud has happened, if a user can immediately report it, if the money comes back to their account immediately, and a seamless dispute process happens in the background without really impacting anybody, I think that's the thing that will go along with this.
Yeah. So coming to Venu again, so when we talk about using credit and so how do you see the collaboration, or maybe what is the support you require from the policymakers or regulators to increase that adoption?
Very interesting question, right? I think, look, the policy makers are already very, very aggressive and inclined on pushing this, because everybody is realizing that credit line on UPI is the next, potential solution for fast tracking the retail lending growth in India. So that's already happening. Maybe what can happen is, like some of the thoughts we talked about, some of those decisions are expedited. They are well on course. It's a matter of time. It happens now. It happens in few months. Some of them are expedited as technology is evolving. And a little bit of processing infrastructure is further democratized. That will be helpful. Banks are already very bullish on it. Maybe you could see other lenders coming in, other players coming in through the same standards, same policy, same trust. That will further increase the number of players and will further promote the growth. I think some of those aspects.
We are already getting the required support, I think.
I think we are well on course.
Yeah. Yes, Sujeet?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say our regulators are working very hard to ensure that the end customer is benefited by their policies. And this actually helps the end customer to be more and more involved in the overall ecosystem. So yeah, I agree with Venu that our regulators and policymakers are putting every effort to ensure that the end customer and the overall ecosystem grows to the next level.
So while I think there is a lot of support, the only thing one asks is they should also think about maybe incentivizing, because only fintech companies cannot really burn the money always to increase the adoption. So while we are coming to the end of our panel discussion, maybe we will have some time to take one or two questions from the audience. So somebody if, wants to ask a question, maybe it's there. If somebody can hand over the mic to him. If you can just say your name, and then if you would want some specific panelists to answer the question, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Anand. Feature phone-based UPI payments were introduced, I think, a year or two ago. How do you see the role of that in driving this last mile of customers?
So UPI on feature phone, can you say like how it can drive the last mile?
Yeah, the feature phone adoption has been there. There are multiple organizations who are working on it. But the way our India is transforming, I would say the role of feature phone is kind of decreasing. Everyone is moving into high-speed internet, smartphones. So with time, the transactions originating from feature phones would decrease because the use of a feature phone itself is decreasing. But yeah, smartphones are now you would see everyone near to you holding a smartphone. So the flexibility and the features are already there, but the way the trends of feature phone is decreasing, it is not really pushing those kinds of transactions.
I completely agree. Look, as a technologist, I have never betted against technology evolution. I think we are already on course with migrating away from a feature phone-based ecosystem to more smartphone-based ecosystem. So I completely agree. It's important that we innovate more and more features and functionalities and offers to the consumers. The movement from feature phone to smartphone is already happening and will catch up.
I think if we'll see USSD based and voice based options are already there on feature phone, but the volumes are not growing as expected, right? So probably it's declining, and on smartphone adoption on volumes on smartphone are pretty much progressive in nature. That's what I would like to say.
And also you have features like UPI Circle and all, where it is not necessarily that the person who is originating the transaction has to be the end user, right? It can be somebody else in the family, like somebody else who is either aware themselves how to use it, and they can do the transaction on behalf of the person who wants to do it. Like we all, I'm sure we have people in our family, in our circle, where we get a request saying that, okay, please make so-and-so payment. So in that case, I think the smartphone adoption and the feature phone will be less and less required for that.
As we wrap up today's panel, I think the key takeaway is while we are working on it, there are multiple pieces we have to put in together. The trust, awareness, acceptance, accessibility, and of course the agent network. So when we work on all these things together, we can really truly unlock the potential of UPI at the last mile. I would like to thanks my co-panelists and the lovely audience you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for gracing this occasion with your kind presence and insights that you shared here. Please step forward for a group photo.